Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, where you are. Welcome to Ahfad University for Women, and this is the project management PUSS 422. I am your teacher, Muhammad Saeed Mahjoub.
In this lecture, we are diving into the project life cycle, an essential concept in project management that provides a structured framework for managing projects from start to finish. Understanding the project life cycle is like understanding the blueprint of a building. It guides every step of the project, ensuring clarity, efficiency, and successful outcomes. Whether you are managing a construction project, planning a large-scale event, or developing software, the life cycle breaks down complex projects into manageable phases, each with distinct objectives and deliverables. By the end of this lecture, you will not only understand the stages of the life cycle, but also see how they apply in real world scenarios. For instance, think about launching a product like new iPhone. Apple follows all the stages of the life cycle, from idea generation, the first stage of negotiation, project launch, the last stage of closing. So let us get started on this journey into one of the fundamental topics of project management. We will start with briefly defining the project lifecycle and the structured framework used to manage projects and emphasize its universality across industries like construction, IT, healthcare, and event management. We will consider the building of Project Burj Khalifa. The project went through initiation, concept, and feasibility, planning, detailed design, execution, construction, and closure at the hand of the project. Why the project life cycle is important? Because it helps project managers and teams understand their goals at each phase, allocate resources effectively, and monitor progress and adapt to challenges. Mentioned how the textbook from page 12 introduces the cycle as a mean to reduce complexity in project. Another real-world application we will discuss the COVID-19 vaccine development, which is followed at linear project lifecycle 2. At initiation, the first stage, the identifying the needs of a vaccine. The planning stage and phase, where designing clinical trials. At the execution phase stage, manufacturing and distribution of the doses. And the last closure stage, delivering the product to health facilities and assessing outcomes. So, think about the same project that we asked you to think about in the previous lecture, such as planning family trip or organizing a school event. Now, how did the move through the stages, for example, in the family initiation, deciding the destination, planning, creating a budget, execution, taking the trip, and closure, sharing picture or memories. Don't forget, the project life cycle is a universal framework applicable across industries. Its stages simplify complex projects into manageable parts. Many real-world examples, inshallah, we will discuss to elaborate more about the project life cycle, like Apple launching the new iPhone, global infrastructure projects like Burj Khalifa, global projects like COVID-19 vaccine will demonstrate its practical value. Our difference is the project management in practice. We will go through the overview of the project life cycle and its stages from pages 12 to 14. On chapter 1, the world of project management. On this slide, we will outline the learning outcomes for today's lesson. These outcomes represent the key objectives you should achieve by the end of this lecture on the project life cycle, including the different types of project life cycle, the S-shaped and J-shaped life cycles. So by the end of this lecture, you should be able to describe the stages of project life cycle. We will learn about the 4 distinct phases: initiation, the first phase; planning, the second phase; execution, the third phase; and closure, the last and the fourth phase, and their roles in managing projects. Second, you will be able to explain the significance of each stage in achieving project success. Understanding how each phase contributes to the overall goal helps ensure efficient resource utilization and alignment with objectives. The third learning outcome, you will be able to identify key deliverables and activities in each stage. Such phase as a specific output and activities that drive the project forward. The fourth learning outcome is to be able to discuss the relationship between the life cycle stages and project management processes. We will explore how life cycle phases integrate with processes like risk management, budgeting, and stakeholder communication. Fifth, you will be able to identify the types of the project life cycle, S-shape and J-shape, and to compare between them. You will understand 2 specific types of project life cycles, S-shape and J-shape, and how they are characterized by different patterns of effort and cost over time. You will compare the characteristics of both types of life cycles and discuss when each type might be most appropriate. Last, you will be able to provide real-world examples of projects and their life cycle stages by looking at each studies like construction, building, or launching a product. You will connect theory to practice. So by focusing on these outcomes, you will not only understand the structure of project, but also see how its framework applies to real-world challenges. Let us move forward to explore the content in more details. But before that, remember, by end of this lecture, you will be able to describe the stages of project life cycle. Students will learn about the 4 stages of project life cycle: initiation, planning, execution, and closure. Each of these stages has specific goals, deliverables, and activities that drive the project forward. For example, in construction project, in the initiation stage involves assessing site feasibility. The planning stage involves creating architectural plans. The execution stage includes the physical construction of the project, and the closure stage includes handing over the completed project to the client. The second learning outcomes, which are about explaining the significance of each stage in achieving project success. Understanding each phase is crucial because each phase built on the previous one. Proper planning ensures effective execution, and closure, the project meets all objectives. So in development of a new smartphone, proper planning is the early stage can help avoid delays or cost overruns during execution by ensuring the product is delivered on time and within budget. Third, identifying the key deliverables activities, as in a software project, the deliverable for the initiation phase should be feasibility report, while the planning phase produces a detailed project plan, so the deliverables are each estimate. First, we will discuss the relationship between the stages and processes by explaining how stages align with project management processes like stakeholder management and resource allocation. Fifth, we will identify and compare between the S-shaped and the J-shaped project life cycle. So you will learn there are different types of project life cycles that have distinct patterns of effort and cost, J-shaped and S-shaped. The S-shaped life cycle shows a slow initial investment of effort and cost, followed by a steady increase in the project involved into execution, and then a decrease as the project is complete. Let us now take a moment to overview the key topics we will cover in today's lecture on the project lifecycle. This content form the foundation of understanding how projects are structured and managed effectively. Now, as we gone over the learning outcomes, we will take a look at the content that we will cover. We will start with the first topic about the definition of the project life cycle. We will begin by defining what the project life cycle is and why it's essential for managing projects effectively. We will see how breaking a project into stages helps us focus on specific tasks. Second, the stages of the project life cycle. Next, we will dive into 4 key stages or phases of project life cycle. First phase, initiation, second, planning, third, execution, and the last, fourth, closure. Each of these phases has distinct activities and deliverables that contribute to the project success. We will break each of these down in details. Third, characteristics of the life cycle stages. In this point, you will learn about the specific features of these stages, such as how costs and efforts vary and how uncertainty decreases over time. Fourth, relationship between life cycle and project success. We will explore how following the life cycle ensure better project outcomes like meeting deadline and staying within budget. Fifth, types of project life cycles. After discussing the stages, we will move on to 2 important types of project life cycles, S-shaped and J-shaped. We will explain what these are and how they differ, and when each is most applicable to real-world projects. Characteristics and comparison between the S-shape and the J-shape also will be explored, as the characteristics of S-shape and J-shape will be compared to their pattern in terms of effort, time, cost. This will help understand how different projects follow different patterns of development. Last, real-world examples. Finally, we will take a closer look at some real-world examples of projects that follows S-shape and J-shape life cycle. We will see how these cycles are applied in industries like construction, research and development, and software development. So by the end of today's lecture, we will understand how the project lifecycle provides roadmap for successful project management. So remember, these are the topics that we are going to cover. First, the definition of the project life cycle. Start by emphasizing that the project life cycle refers to the series stages a project goes through from initiation to completion. This cycle provides a structured approach to managing projects, ensuring that every aspect is covered from start to finish. The stages of the project life cycle, we will explain the 4 stages in detail, discussing their importance in ensuring project stay on track and meet goals. First stage, initiation, setting clear objectives and identifying key stakeholders. Second phase, planning, developing a roadmap to guide the project, including resource allocation and timeline. Third phase, execution, implementing the plan and monitoring progress. The last and the fourth stage, closure, reviewing outcomes, closing contracts, and conducting final evaluation. Third characteristics of the project life cycle, the cost and effort curves. Effort is highest during the execution phase, while risk and uncertainties are highest during initiation. We will discuss how the influence of the stakeholder is greatest during initiation and decreases as project progress. Relationship between life cycle and project success. Followed the life cycle, ensure projects stay aligned with goals, reduce risk, and use resources effectively. We will discuss how skipping or neglecting any stage can lead to failure. Types of project life cycle. Introducing the S-shape and the J-shape life cycle as 2 distinct types of project life cycle, which differ in the way cost, resources, and effort are distributed. So we will remember that S-shape characterized by slow start and increasing effort during execution and a decrease as the project wraps up. This type is common in construction projects, while J-shape involves an initial investment followed by drop, then a sharp rise in cost or effort as the project nears completion. This is often seen in research and development. Comparing the S-shape and the J-shape life cycle in terms of cost, both types are resource intensive, but the pattern of cost accumulation differ, and the effort J-shape increase gradually while S-shape increases gradually while the J-shape has initial surge in effort. Real world examples will be also providing practical examples where each of the life cycle applies. Construction projects for S-shape, research and development projects for the J-shape. Examples like Burj Khalifa, a smartphone of iPhone, COVID-19 vaccination will be applied. Don't forget always to think about the project that you have been involved in or see in action, and think about later how it applies either the S-shape or the J-shape. Understanding the stages of project life cycle and the types of life cycle S-shape and J-shape will help in managing resources, budget, and timeline effectively. Different industries may use different types of project life cycle depending on the nature of the project and its objectives. Real-world examples that will be discussed will illustrate how these concepts are applied across construction, research and development, and technology development. Don't forget to follow the lesson on the textbook from page 12 and 14 and make and develop your own summary for the lesson. Now, let us go to the key terms that we will come over during this lesson. Let us take a closer look at the key terms associated with the project life cycle. These terms will help you build a solid foundation of understanding the stages of project and their role in achieving success. By understanding these terms will allow you to better grasp the project life cycle and its application to real-world scenarios. For instance, consider construction project. Deliverables in the initiation phase may include feasibility study, while deliverables in closure phase in the completed building. Let us dive into these concepts. We are move on forward. So, the first is the project life cycle. Project life cycle refers to the series of phases a project goes through from initiation to completion. It provides structured approach to manage a project and helps ensure that each stage is probably planned, executed, and closed. For example, in construction a hospital, the life cycle includes initiation phase, defining the project, planning phase, creating architectural design, execution phase, building the hospital, and closure phase, handing over the completed hospital. The second term is initiation. Initiation is the first phase of the project life cycle, where the project is defined, its objectives are established, and its feasibility is assessed. This phase involves gathering initial resources and setting the project's direction. As in a new product launch, initiation involves market research, defining product feature, and determining product scope. The second, planning. Planning is phase where detailed strategies of project execution are created. It includes defining the scope, creating schedules, estimating cost, and identifying potential risks. This phase is critical to ensure that the project is well organized and that resources are allocated effectively. As in a software development project, planning should involve designing the system requirements, creating project timeline, and allocating tasks to team members. Execution is the phase where the project plan is implemented. It involves coordinating people, resources, and activities to produce the project's deliverables. This phase also includes monitoring progress, managing risk, and ensuring that project goals are met. As an example, in a construction project, execution involves managing contractors, overseeing the building progress, and ensuring that the project is completed according to plan. Closure is the final phase of project lifecycle. It involves completing and delivering the project deliverables, evaluating project's performance, and formally closing out the projects during closure. And the team conduct a review to identify lessons learned and document best practices. In closure phase, for example, a marketing campaign, the team should analyze the campaign success, gather feedbacks, and compile reports for future references. Deliverables. Deliverables, these are tangible outputs or result specific to each phase. So for example, in the planning phase, a construction project, a detailed blueprint serves as a key deliverable. S-shaped project life. S-shaped project life cycle is characterized by a gradual build-up of a wave anchors, followed by a peak in the middle of the project and tapering off toward closure. This pattern is common in projects where the work is initially slow but accelerates as the project progresses, peaking during execution and then decreasing at the project near completion. As in the construction project, like building a skyscraper like Burj Khalifa, early planning and site preparation are minimal cost, while the majority of resources and effort are used during the actual construction. Tapering off once the project building is complete. The J-shaped project life cycle. The J-shaped project life cycle is characterized by high initial cost and effort, followed by a significant drop or slower progress, and then a rapid increase in cost and effort toward the completion. This pattern is often used in research and development, R&D, or projects that involve innovation, where the bulk of all investment occurs at the start, then levels up, and finally again toward, and finally, surge again toward the project completion. As in a tech company developing a new product may experience high cost in research, followed by quieter phase that the product is tested, and then final push during manufacturing and product launch. So, understanding these key terms is crucial for successfully navigating the project lifecycle. The terms are interconnected at each phase: initiation, planning, execution, and closure has unique activities that contribute to the success of the project. The S-shaped and J-shaped life cycles shows different patterns of resources used depending on the type of projects.
To understand project management, we must first grasp the concept of the project life cycle. The project life cycle represents the structured sequence of phases a project goes through from its initial conception to its final completion. This structure ensures that every aspect of project is addressed systematically, reducing risk and enhancing likelihood of success. The project life cycle is typically involved into 5 or 4 phases. Initiation is where the project begins and the project's objectives, scope, and stakeholders are defined. Planning, detailed strategies, and resource allocation are developed to guide the project. Execution. The project's deliverables are created, involving the majority of the effort and resources. At the same time, they should be monitoring and controlling, which is an overlapped process. Progress is tracked and necessary adjustments are made to ensure alignment with the plan. The last phase is closure. The project is finalized, deliverables are handed out, and lessons learned are documented. We'll see that there are 2 key patterns of project life cycles are the S-shaped curve and the G-shaped curve, which reflect how effort, cost, and progress evolve over time. So, Briefly, we can say that the S-shaped life cycle shows steady progress initially, followed by rapid acceleration in the middle phases and tapering off toward completion. This pattern is common in structured projects like construction, as we will see in more details in a while. The J-shaped life cycle, on the other hand, demonstrates a slow start with minimal progress in the early stages and a sharp rise in activity at the project nears completion. This is typically in research and development projects where breakthroughs often become later. We will going to understand each of those life cycle patterns in more details. So by understanding these life cycle patterns, you can better predict and manage project dynamics, making informed decisions about resources and timelines. Next, we will going to define in more details each of the four main stages of the project life cycle, along with the overall stage, which is the monitoring and controlling. Let us now dive deeper into the S-shaped project life cycle, which is common used in structured projects where progress is gradual and predictable, and sometimes it's called the conventional life cycle because most of the projects are taking this pattern of life cycle. The S-shaped life cycle typically starts with a slow initial phases. So the project starts very slow, where the project is being planned and set up. So no much effort at this level, no much cost. During this phase, the project team is gathering information, identifying key stakeholders, and finalizing the concept and project's objectives. During this phase, the cost and effort are relatively low, but as uncertainty is high because much of the detailed planning is still being finalized. For example, in construction, like building a house, it might involve design work of the house, obtaining permits, and initial procurement of resources. When we go further in planning phase, typically marks the beginning of the S-shape. Once the foundation is set, the project moves to the execution phase. At this stage, the progress will accelerate rapidly. Here, most of the resources are committed, acquired, and the core deliverables are being created step by step. Effort and cost rise significantly as we are executing the project, and the project team works to complete the bulk of the work. This is the steep up slope of the S, as you will see in figure 1.2, page 13. At the project nears completion, it's entered the closure phase, the last phase, where progress being show slow again, as we are delivering all of the results of the project, creating the tail end of the S, as you see in the diagram. During this phase, the focus shifts to completing and remaining tasks, finalizing documentation, and this is very important aspect in project documentation, and handing over the deliverables to the clients. Costs are remain high during this phase due to the activities like testing, inspection, and final adjustments. But effort is often reduced as we are not using many labor or employees during this phase as they are being released from the project. So the project now wraps up. As a real case example, a classic example of the S-shaped life cycle is construction of a new office building, for example. During the early stages, the team is involved in planning and designing the office, while relatively low activity levels, only meetings. Once construction begins, activity intensifies. Laborers come to the work, materials being purchased, and the project reaches its peak during the building phase. Finally, as construction concludes and the building is handed over to the clients, progress slows again as final inspections finishes and occupancy take place. In the S-shaped curve, effort and cost rise significantly during the execution phase, reflecting the bulk of project's activities. At the same time, uncertainty is gradually reduced as the project progresses, and more is known about the scope, timeline, and resources involved because uncertainty related to the time. So the more time going to the project to reach the end, so everything now it's clear for us. Now let us move on to the J-shaped life cycle, which is quite different in terms of its initial and final phases. Now let us explore the J-shaped life cycle, which is contrasted with the S-shaped curve. The J-shape, or sometimes called the exponential life cycle curve, typically start with a slow start and minimal progress, followed by rapid acceleration at the project near completion. This life cycle is often seen in projects where early phases require substantial research, testing, or development, and progress only picks up as breakthrough occur later on. So following the J-shape on the 5 stages of the project life cycle, in the initial stage of the J-shaped life cycle, the projects move slowly as significant groundwork is laid. During this phase, the project team may be engaged in early feasibility studies, requirements, gathering, or research takes that take time but yield little visible progress. So for example, in pharmaceutical research and development, and we can consider the COVID-19, this could involve initial testing of drug compound where progress is low and costs are relatively low. Uncertainty is very high because project team does not yet know if their effort will lead to a successful outcome, that a vaccine that cure or prevent COVID-19. However, as the project progresses and begins to reach any key milestone, progress will accelerate rapidly. This is the steep upward part of the J-shape, as you see in figure 1.3 on page 14. This is the steep up of the J-shape. For example, once initial drug testing shows promising result, the project might move quickly into clinical trials, where efforts and resources intensify. Looking at the cost, which will increase, as well as significant investments are made in resources, equipment, and team to expedite the development progress. At the final stage in the closure of the project, typically see the rate of progress taper off as the project enter its final phase, similar to the slowing down in the execution phase of the S-shape life cycle. However, unlike the S-shape, the steep upward curve of the J-shaped represents the major proportion of the project progress, which is at the end level. Much of the key works get done during this phase, the last phase. At the closure phase, may involve final testing, regulatory approval, or scaling up production activities that can still be demanding, but the real breakthrough happens earlier. So, for example, a great example for the J-shaped life cycle is the development of a new software. Initially, during the requirements and design phase, progress is very slow as the developer figure out the complexity of the product that he will develop, which considerable uncertainty about which is the best approach to adopt. But once the initial groundwork is done and the development phase accelerates, progress speed up and the software quickly started to take shape, reaching full functionality. Just before launch, in this life cycle of the S-shape, of the J-shape, uncertainty is high in the early stages, but effort and cost surge in the execution phase, leading to steep climb at the project near completion, which is the edge of the J. This accelerate of innovation or research and development of heavily projects, where early stages effort does not always result in immediate feasible progress, but the payoff is substantial as the project reaches the final stage. So now we can see that J-shape and S-shape are different, and to compare the two life cycles, we will move on to explore how these life cycles apply in different stages of project life cycle and the deliverables we expected at each phase. So the next slide will be a comparison of the S-shape conventional life cycle and the J-shape exponential life cycle. So let us now explore the individual characteristics of both the S-shape and the J-shape life cycle and to compare between them. So let us take a moment to compare and contrast these two patterns. Understanding these differences will help you determine which project life cycle fits a particular type of project based on its nature and objectives. So each project will follow a different pattern of life cycle. So we start with the S-shaped life cycle. S-shaped life cycle, it's a gradual start. The project begins with a slow progress and groundwork is laid. Effort is minimal during this initiation and planning phase, and uncertainty is very high. This will be followed by rapid execution. Once the project moves into the execution phase, progress accelerates as the core work is completed, such as construction, product development, or manufacturing. Effort and cost increase significantly during this phase. It will be followed by a slow finish. At the project near completion, the pace slows down again. During this closure phase, where tasks like testing, final adjustments, and documentation will take place. The best projects that can be structured for this J-shaped life cycle is the ideal of projects that follow a well-defined and predictable outcomes. We call it structured projects, like building a hospital, for example. This is including construction projects or even manufacturing lines projects. While on the other hand, the J-shaped life cycle, it has a slow initial progress. Projects following this life cycle often begin with limited visible progress. At early phases, such as research, feasibility studies, or design, take considerable time, and here the uncertainty will be very high. Followed that will be a rapid acceleration as the project reaches key breakthroughs, such as successful trials or the completion of the prototype.
progress will accelerate. Effort and cost surge and the projects move toward completion. Then, tapering off at completion. Once major objectives are achieved and deliverables are near finalization, the rate of progress will slow again, similar to the S-shaped curve, but with more emphasis on the final quality checks and adjustments. This type of or pattern of life cycle is best for innovation or research and development projects. The J-shaped life cycle is ideal for projects with high uncertainty, where initial phases are exploratory and experimentally, such as developing a new technology products or pharmaceutical research and development projects. So we can say that the key differences in the initial phase in an S-shaped projects, you can expect a steadier increase in activity from the beginning. In contrast, a J-shaped projects will have a slow start with minimal activity before accelerating. Progress acceleration, the S-shape are represents gradual acceleration, while the J-shape featured a significant leap once the project overcomes its initial barriers. For the resource allocation, the S-shape typically sees more balanced allocation of resources, which is heavier cost in the middle phase, while in the J-shape, resource allocation is concentrated in the later stages as breakthroughs or product development require substantial investment at that point. So we can conclude that both life cycles help to manage expectations of stakeholders and allocate resources more effectively. By understanding whether your project followed an S-shape or a J-shape pattern, you can make informed decisions about project planning, team consideration, and risk management. Now that we have seen the differences and similarities, let us move on to the stages of the project life cycle, where we will examine how these types of cycles played out in phase and their deliverables. Let us now turn our attention to the stages of the project life cycle, a crucial framework that guides the entire project from initiation to completion. Stages provide structure, ensure clear objectives at each phase, and allow for a better resource management, risk mitigation, and tracking progress. We will go over each stage in detail, discussing the key deliverables, effort, cost, and uncertainty involved at each stage. There are 5 primary stages in project life cycle. The first stage is initiation. The objective of this stage is the project is formally authorized and its goals, scope, and key stakeholders are defined. This project's feasibility is assessed and it's aligned with organization goals is confirmed. And this will be our next topic, how we can select a project that aligns with the organization goal. The deliverables of this stage is the project charter, and this will be the first document that you will develop for your progress assessment, which includes the project's purpose, objectives, key stakeholders, and initial resource estimate. Efforts and cost at this stage are low. Most of the work involved planning, gathering information, and setting objectives, while uncertainty in this stage has a high uncertainty because the full scope of the project is not yet clear. Decisions regarding the feasibility and resources, it is still being made. So for example, consider a new product development project. In the initiation phase, the team will identify customer needs, define the product concept, and determine if the project is feasible or not. The second phase is planning. In planning, the project team develops a comprehensive plan, including a detailed scope, schedule, resource allocation, and risk management strategy. The deliverable of this stage is the project management plan, which we will develop also together. And in this stage, we will have 3 topics: the project activity planning, the budgeting, and the scheduling. The project management plan, which is include detailed outline of scope, time, cost, and quality and risk management, as well as stakeholder communication plan. The relation between cost and effort. Effort and cost part to rise as detailed planning is done and resources are allocated. Uncertainty decreases as the scope is clarified and project objectives are more clearly defined. However, some risks might still be high if the project is particularly innovation or involved unknowns. So for example, in a construction project, the planning phase includes detailed drawings, timelines, budgets, procurement plan, and risk assessment. The third stage is execution. The objective of this stage, this is the phase where most of the project's work is completed. Deliverables are produced and the project team works to meet the defined scope and objectives. So this is the carry out of the project. The deliverables of this stage is the actual product, service, or result that the project is intended to create. For instance, it could be a completed building, for example, or a development software product, or for example, a marketing campaign ready for launch. We will come with different types of projects in each of your specializations. Effort and cost. In this stage, effort and cost peak during this phase, and it involves intensive work, resources at their highest usage, and the project is in full operation. While with the uncertainty reduces as the project moves forward, but there are still may be risk in achieving the desired outcomes or meeting deadlines. Risk management strategies become critical as more unseen being experienced. For example, during the execution phase of a software project, the testers are conducting quality checks and managers are monitoring the progress. The project moves forward rapidly, especially if it's well planned. The fourth phase and stage, which is an overlapping with the execution, monitoring and controlling. Project objective of this phase that this phase runs concurrently with execution and ensure that the project is on track. Any deviations from the plan where any scope, schedule, cost are identified and corrected according to a correction or prevention plan. In this stage, the deliverables are performance reports, including updated eval schedules, resource allocation report, and risk assessments. The effort and cost. In this phase, effort focuses on monitoring and controlling processes but costs are generally lower in this phase than during the execution, with uncertainty continue to decrease as more data is available, but they may be still unforeseen challenges requiring quick adjustment. For example, if we consider now a procurement project, during the monitoring phase, the team tracked delivery timelines, cost and quality of the product that purchased from the suppliers, and the services being procured, ensuring everything's aligned with the procurement plan. The last phase or stage is closure or termination. The objective of this stage is that the project is officially completed. Deliverables are handed over to the stakeholders and the project is closed out. Now the team evaluates the project to assess performance and document lessons learned. The main deliverable of this stage is the project closure report, and also this will be one of the documents that you will be designing, which include an evaluation of project performance, final outcomes, and any final deliverables or documentations. The effort and cost during this stage are low, as this phase primarily involves finalizing reports and completing remaining tasks and releasing definitely the workers, the project team members. Uncertainty is at its lowest during this closure phase. By this point, all deliverables should be in place and the project is winding down. For example, in a marketing campaign event management project, closure involves finalizing all invoices, completing the post-event analysis, and gathering feedback from attendees and stakeholders. Each of these stages is critical for guiding a project from its inspection to its completion, ensuring that resources are used effectively, risks are managed, and objectives are met. The life cycle framework helps ensure that no important phase is skipped and each stage is given the attention it needs for the project to be successful. Now we will cover the stages. Let us look at how cost, effort, risk, and uncertainty related to these phases, helping us understand the dynamics at play in each stage in the project life cycle. Now that we have gone over the stages of the project life cycle, initiation, planning, execution, monitoring and control, and closure, let us focus on how key factors like cost and effort, risk and uncertainty, stakeholder influence involved through these stages. Understanding how these elements interact at each phase is crucial for successful project management. Let us break them down. Cost and effort. Initial phase, at this stage, cost and effort are low, as you see in the diagram. The project is just starting and most work involves defining the project scope. Objectives are identifying key stakeholders. Little physical work is done, so cost and effort are minimal. Moving to the planning phase, as the project team start creating detailed plan, effort and cost begin to rise. As you see, more resources are needed to develop detailed schedules, procure materials, and assigning tasks. Planning involves intensive coordination and preparation, and thus effort and cost increase. At the execution phase, This is where cost and effort peak. As you see the peak effort level, the project is in full swing with the majority of work being done and resources being heavily allocated. The execution phase typically consumes the most resources, both in terms of human, labor, and material cost. During this phase also as concurrently monitoring and controlling phase, although effort and cost are somehow and somewhat reduced in this phase. Resources are still being allocated to ensure the project stay on track. The focus is on managing variations and variances from the plan and making any necessary adjustments, which could involve additional cost also. At the last phase, the closure, in this final phase, cost and effort decreases as the project winds down. The project team is focusing on completing deliverables, finalizing reports, and handing over the final product or service to the stakeholder. If you consider the risk and uncertainty, in initial phase, the level of risk is high due to the uncertainty of the project's viability and scope. During this phase, the project team has limited information, making it difficult to anticipate all potential risk. While in the planning phase, risk is more clearly identified and planning helps to mitigate how of these risks. Risk management strategies are developed and the project's objectives and constraints are clarified. While risks remain, they are better understood. At the execution phase, in this execution phase, risk still exists, but they tend to be more manageable because the team is executing the project plan. However, unforeseen problems may arise. For example, such issues with quality control or unexpected delays requiring quick adjustment. Monitoring and controlling phase, the risk is continuously monitored during this phase. The project manager tracks performance and assesses any risks that could threaten the project's success. The goal here is to respond proactively, reducing risk as much as possible. When we reach the closure phase, by the time the project reaches closure, most of the risks have been mitigated and focus shift to finalizing deliverables and ensuring that all project's requirements have been met. At this point, the primary risks are logistical, such as closing out contracts or resolving any last-minute issues. When we go to uncertainty, it's like the risk. Uncertainty in the initial phase, it is at the highest because the project is just starting and the full scope and outcomes are unclear. The team is unsure whether the project can be completed successfully, what resources will be required, and what obstacles might arise. At the planning phase, as the planning phase progresses, uncertainty begins to decrease. The project team gather more information, refine the scope, and anticipate challenges. Risk analysis and mitigation plans help reduce uncertainty about the project's execution. While in the execution phase, uncertainty decreases as the project moves forward. It may still arise due to unforeseen like risk, issues such as resource shortages, technical failure, or changing in the external environment. The project team must adapt and adjust to these challenges very fast. Monitoring and controlling phase. By this phase, uncertainty is mostly under control, through some degree of unpredictability remains as the project team manage any emerging issues or scope changes. At the final stage and phase, closure phase, uncertainty is minimal. By the time the project reaches closure, the project has been completed, so deliverables have been handed over, and final performance evaluation are in phase. Last, we can see the stakeholder influences. The stakeholder involved in the most critical during the initiation and planning phase to ensure project's goals align with expectations, while at the execution and monitoring and control, the influence is diminishing, although they may still provide approval or feedback. At the closure stage, the stakeholders are needed for accepting the deliverables of the project. So, for example, in planning an event, stakeholders are the sponsors, have the greatest input when determining the event scope and budget, while during execution, their goal is limited to monitoring progress, and at the closure, their role is to accept the project deliverables. So in summary, as the project progresses through the life cycle, effort and cost increasing during the execution phase and taper off during closure, while risk and uncertainty are the highest in the beginning, like the stakeholder influence, and decreases as the project progress. Thanks to detailed planning, execution, and monitoring. Understanding these dynamics allows project managers to make informed decisions about resource allocation, risk mitigation, and timeline adjustments. Let us now move to how these concepts apply across different management fields. You will see how the project's life cycle plays a role in human resources, marketing, procurement and supply chain management, and finance and accounting management. Let us now see and explore the project life cycle and its key elements. Let us look at how these concepts apply to different management fields. The project life cycle is a universal tool, definitely, that can be tailored to fit the specific need of any project, no matter the industry or specialization. Let us take a closer look at how the real cycle plays out in human resource management, marketing management, procurement and supply chain management, and finance and accounting management. So, start with the human resource management, HRM. Application in the human resource management, the project life cycle can be applied to initiatives like employee onboarding programs, leadership development programs, or organizational restructure. So, for example, an onboarding program, the project life cycle begins with the initiation, where the need for a formal onboarding process is identified. In the planning, the team creates training materials, schedules, and assigns mentors. The execution involves conducting orientation sessions and delivering the training. Monitoring ensures that the new hires are integrated successfully, and the closure phase includes gathering feedbacks and adjusting the program for future cohorts. The human resource management project life cycle ensures that all steps are followed methodically, allowing for a proper integration and measurable result. In marketing management, the project life cycle is initial for managing product launch campaign, for example, advertising initiatives, marketing research project. So if you consider the launch of a new product like the iPhone, which is launched last September, during the initiation phase, the project scope is defined, what product is being launched, who is the target audience, and what are the key objectives. At the planning phase might involve developing the marketing strategy, identifying sales channels, and creating promotional materials. In the execution phase, marketing activities such as advertisement creation, social media campaigns, and influencer partnership are rolled out. The monitoring phase tracks customer engagement and sales, while the closure phase evaluates the campaign success and documents lessons learned for future launches. So this structured approach of the project lifecycle allows marketing manager to align activities with strategic goals and track progress to ensure the campaign's success. In procurement and supply chain management, projects often involve around vendor selection, contract negotiations, or supply chain optimization. So for a vendor selection project, the initiation phase involved identifying the needs of the new vendor. During planning phase, the team establishes criteria for selecting the vendor, such as the price, reliability, and delivery times. The execution phase includes issuing the request for proposal, RFPs, evaluating vendor responses, and negotiating contracts with the shortlisted vendors. In the monitoring phase, the vendor's performance is assessed against the contract terms, and any adjustments are made if necessary. Finally, closure phase ensures that the contract is fully executed and finalized, and any remaining issues are resolved. The project lifecycle ensures that the procurement activities are structured, risks are identified early, and vendors are evaluated systematically, contributing to a better supply chain efficiency. Last but not least, finance and accounting management. So in finance and accounting, the project lifecycle applied to projects such as financial audits, budgeting processes, and investment analysis. For example, of a financial audit, the initiation phase involves defining the audit scope and selecting the audit team. During planning phase, the team establishes procedures, schedules, and key financial documents to review. The execution phase is where the audit is carried out, including data collection and financial analysis. Monitoring, ensuring that the audit stays on schedule and within budget. And in the last phase, the closure phase, the audit report is finalized and any discrepancies or recommendations are addressed. So the project life cycle in finance helps manage the complexity of audit, ensure compliance with regulations, and provides a clear framework for completing financial assessments efficiently. So as we see in each of these management fields, the project life cycle serves a critical tool for ensuring that projects are completed on time, while budget and with clear measurable outcomes. By following a structured approach, project manager can navigate challenges, mitigate risk, and align these activities with organizational goals. Next, we will go through different real-world applications for the project life cycle stages. Okay, now we have understood the differences between the S-shaped and the J-shaped projects and the life cycle stages. Let us look at the real application to see how these life cycles are applied in practice across different industries. By exploring these examples, you will get a better idea of when each life cycle type is most useful and how they help manage projects successfully. The first is construction industry, where the S-shaped life cycle is the pattern of the stages from conception to completion. The S-shaped life cycle is very common in construction industry as projects often involve gradual increase in effort and cost during the middle phase. The planning and design phase starts slow, then construction execution pick up pace, and cost taper off once the project near completion during the closure phase. So for example, when building a hospital is a great example of S-shaped project. Initiation phase, the project starts with feasibility studies and obtaining permits, which require relatively little cost and effort. During the planning phase, architectural design are finalized, contractors are hired, and schedules are set. This is where costs begin to rise steadily. Execution ramps up significantly as construction begins, leading to the project cost and effort as the project nears completion. The final phase involves inspection, certifications, and handover, which required less effort and cost. So, as discussed in the reference, the S-shaped life cycle applied in infrastructure projects like construction, where most resources are used during the execution phase. The second example is event management, which is also S-shaped life cycle. It's also applicable in event management, the S-shaped life cycle. The process begins with a low activity as planning and initial logistics take shape, then the effort and cost increase as the event approaches, peaking during the event itself, and finally tapering off after the event is over. So for example, organizing a large-scale music festival. During initiation, the planning team secure permits, books artists, and arrange the venue. At the event date near, the planning phase becomes more intense with detail like ticket sales, marketing, and technical setup. The execution phase sees the peak of cost and effort as event is held, with team managing on-site logistics, artists, and the audiences. After the event, the closure phase involves wrapping up finance, evaluating the event success, and disbanding the team. So the project life cycle following the S-shape in event planning, where the peak of efforts are during execution. Now we go to the third example, software development, which is J-shaped life cycle. As we know that the G-shaped life cycle is common in research and development projects and software development, where the initial stage requires high investment in research and development, followed by quieter period of refinement, and then a final push as the project is launched. For example, when developing a new application software, during initiation, a company invests heavily in researching user needs, designing the user interface, and planning system requirements. The planning phase involves outlining coding requirements and testing procedures. During this phase, cost and effort might decrease or plateau as the product enters a development phase. Execution sees a sharp increase in cost and effort, particularly during coding, testing, and preparing the application for release. This surge continues as the application is rolled out to users. The J-shaped life cycle is used in software and tech development, where there is an initial surge in cost, followed by dip and then final spike. The last example in the research and development, which is the J-shaped life cycle, which is frequently used in such research and development projects, where significant initial resources are spent on research and prototyping. After this, the activity level may reduce as the project is refined or tested, and then in the final phase, seeing a surge of activity as the product is commercialized or delivered to the market. So, for example, the COVID-19, the pharmaceutical drug development follows the J-shaped pattern. Initial research and clinical trial demand heavily resources and investment to test the feasibility of the drug. During the middle phase, the drug undergoes more trials and less money is spent on developing new treatments. The final push involved mass production, distribution, marketing, and sales, which required a large increase in cost and resources. So the J-shape is suited for industries like pharmaceutical and technology, where the payoff comes after significant upfront investment. So both the S-shape and J-shape life cycle are useful models for understanding how different projects progress in terms of cost and effort. The S-shape is most applicable to projects with steady growth, like construction or large-scale events, while the J-shape is common in high-investment fields like research and development, software development, and product launches, where the early investment set the stages for a final thrust of activities. So remember that many detailed examples of S-shaped and J-shaped can be considered in real life. Building Burj Khalifa, construction building, running a large events like FIFA 19 or the Olympics 2024 in France, developing of a new product like the COVID-19 vaccination, and launching product like launching the iPhone 16 from Apple. These are many real examples of different projects that can be considered. As we near the end of today's lecture, let us quickly recap the key points which we have covered in our discussion of the project life cycle. This will help enforce the concept and ensure you have a clear understanding of how the project life cycle applied in real world scenarios. So what is project life cycle? Project life cycle, we started by defining what is project life cycle, which is a structured approach that divided the project into distinctive phases from initiation to closure. This structure helps ensure that projects are organized, efficient, and aligned with goals. The project life cycle stages are 5. We discussed the key 5 stages of the project life cycle. Initiation with defining the project purpose and assessing feasibility, planning, developing a roadmap, defining scope and creating a schedule and budget, execution, carry out of the project plan, managing team and producing deliverables, monitoring and controlling, ensuring that all of the activities and deliverables are being achieved according to the plan by gathering information about the real achievement and compare it to the plan. Closure, finalizing deliverables, obtain approval and reviewing the project success. Many characteristics of the project life cycle stages we discussed. We explained how cost, risk, and stakeholders involved are changed across the stages as cost and effort peak during execution, while risk and uncertainty are highest during initiation. Stakeholder influence is critical during initiation and planning, but decreasing during execution and closure. We discussed many real-world applications. We explored how the life cycle applied in construction, event management, and software development, showing that it's versatile framework applicable across industries, like in Olympics, FIFA, Project Khalifa, software development, product launching of iPhone illustrate how each industry follows similar stages. Understanding the project life cycle help ensure projects are managed systematically, reduce risk, and meet objectives on time and within budget. It also provides a framework for project managers to allocate resources efficiently and engage stakeholders effectively. The types of project life cycle, S-shape and J-shape, are explored. We explore the S-shape and J-shape project life cycle, highlighting how cost, resources, and effort evolve over time. So the S-shape is characterized by a slow start, followed by a steady increase in cost and effort during the execution phase, and then a decrease as the project wraps up. It's commonly used in construction and infrastructure projects. While the S-shape begins with a high initial investment, followed by decrease and then a final surge at the project's near completion. This life cycle is typically seen in research and development, technology development, and innovation product launching. So building a hospital or Burj Khalifa follows the S-shape, where developing a new tech product like smartphone, iPhone follows the J-shape. Many real case examples also discussed to show the different application for the life cycle, as COVID-19 pharmaceutical companies developing the vaccine followed the J-shape life cycle, and developing high early, which is required high early stage investment, followed by a quieter phase and a final push in production and distribution. Building Burj Khalifa, which is starting with the design blueprint and then move to the execution of implementing the plan of the Burj Khalifa blueprint, which is followed the S-shape. So understanding the differences between the S-shape and J-shape life cycle help project manager decide how allocate resources and plan timeline and manage cost based on the nature of the project. So for example, a project manager overseeing the construction of a new office building needs to focus resources on the execution phase, while project manager overseeing launch of a new product might expect a high initial investment, a quieter middle phase, and final surge of activities. So now we have covered all of these concepts. Think about any project you have been involved or observed. Does it follow the S-shape or J-shape life cycle? How can understanding this life cycle help you manage the project more effectively? So when you're organizing a school fundraising, did you experience an initial surge of effort followed by quieter period and then final push up to execute the event? So which life cycle pattern did it follow? So as a conclusion, remember, the project life cycle is essential for organizing and managing projects effectively. The S-shaped life cycle applies to projects with steady growth like construction and large events, while J-shape is best suited for projects with a significant upfront investment and a final push such as research and development and product development. Real-world application help us see how these life cycles work in practice and how understanding them can guide resource allocation, timeline management, and cost control. Remember, follow the textbook from page 12 to 14 for detailed discussion on the project life cycle, the S-shape and the J-shape life cycle, and their application in various industries. Finally, understanding the project life cycle models and applying them effectively to different types of projects will help you manage resources, control costs, and ensure project success. The project is known which life cycle model fits your project, and using that understanding to plan and execute effectively.